Hey, this is Scott from What You Seek, and today we are going to be looking at the Mido Inspired by Architecture watch. Now, this is a limited edition of 500 watches, and the inspiration for this is the Solomon Guggenheim Museum in New York City. It is an iconic building designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. I believe it opened in 1959. So what Mido did is back in 2016, they launched a campaign called Inspired by Architecture. They visited 60 different monuments throughout the world, and they kind of opened this up, or they did open it up to the watch community, and people were able to vote on which monument they wanted Mido to use as an inspiration for their watch. And the Guggenheim won out as the inspiration for this watch. So let's take a closer look at this Inspired by Architecture Guggenheim edition. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can see this thing here. There we go. So this is a 40 millimeter watch. It is about 12 millimeters tall, and look at that shape. So if you know the Guggenheim, or actually I probably should have put a photo up by now, this shape comes from the exterior of the building. So the Guggenheim Museum, the top floors of the museum are wider than the floors down below. It's really a very unique museum experience. You start at the top, and there's a spiral walkway that you work your way down. So this case is clearly taken its inspiration from the building itself. It is a lugless design. You can see here the purpose-built strap, this leather strap, goes right into the side of the watch here. We do have an exhibition case back with some text explaining some things. There's a limited edition number, your serial number on there. So this is an automatic mechanical movement, and this is the caliber 80 SI, and the SI stands for silicone, so it's a silicone hairspring. It has an 80-hour power reserve, and this is a COSC certified movement. So pretty impressive movement here from Mido. It's nicely finished. We have some Geneva stripes there on the rotor. Let's see if we can. And we have some nice finishing on the base plate there. So overall, really a wonderful movement in this watch. So let's get back to the case here. So like I mentioned, this case design, this is a stainless steel case. We have brushed and polished in there, so it gives that look of the spiral of the Guggenheim. The sapphire crystal here, slight dome. I literally had to take a straight edge on here to be able to see that. I guess you can kind of see that a little bit, but it's very subtle, very, very subtle. The crown here, it is a signed crown. Will it autofocus? Yes, it will. So we have Mido on there. There is a piece of rubber, so we have some rubber on there, and it mimics the shape of the case here. So that conical shape there with the Guggenheim. So it's smooth, it's polished. It's not that it's hard to wind the watch or anything like that, but it is very, very smooth. So moving on to the dial here. So you'll see, let's see if I can get some shadow going on the watch here. There are cutouts. You can see these cutouts. This mimics the design that is in the ceiling. There's a glass dome, they call it the oculus, and the top of the Guggenheim that lets in a ton of light during the day. And the dial shape is pulling its inspiration from that shape, as well as the dial, this eggshell dial, has a texture to it. It's a very nice pebble texture. The Guggenheim is made out of concrete, and I think that texture on the dial really is kind of mimicking the look of like a rough concrete. We have applied markers here for the hour. the markers are really neat. They're rounded on the edge and they're polished on the outside edge. And then they have some kind of non-polishing. I don't know if it's brushed or just like a bead blasted finish, but it gives just a nice little edge the way the light hits the applied markers. We have diamond cut hands here. They are faceted right down the center, so they will reflect light a little different on either side of the hand. Both hands are filled with superluminova, as well as the second hand here that is superluminova filled. And the lume is great. The legibility on this watch is great. There's a nice contrast between the mirror finish of the hands with the eggshell finish on the dial. So on the flange here, you can see the text in that brushed stainless steel. It says inspired by, and then we have architecture down there going the other way. I thought when I first saw photos of this, I thought that would be too, jump out at you, but it really doesn't. You don't even notice it in daily wear. So realistically, it is not an issue at all. So on the dial, completing the dial, we have some text here. It says chronometer Swiss made, and then the date window here. I think that if they left out the date window, it would have made for a stronger design. I think that breaks up the symmetrical element of the circular shape and then the pattern into the dial there. And then the other thing too is that the dial has this texture to it. It's an eggshell, and then there's a white date window under there. So that's the only really thing that design-wise on the dial that I wish wouldn't have been there. So moving on, let's look at the strap. This strap is I mentioned it is purpose-built for this watch, the way that it fits right in. And it's really cool. I love that. I mean, there are screws here on the side to be able to change that, but this radius fits right in. And it's a nice strap. It's a simple strap. I like the way that they kept the black stitching to match the black leather. It's nice and thick up here and then tapers down. And we have a nice signed pin buckle on this side polished there. So overall, very nice strap. So let's get this on the wrist and talk about the wearing comfort. So here we go. This is the Mido inspired by architecture Guggenheim edition watch, limited edition to 500 pieces. And it is very, very comfortable on the wrist. First of all, it's a fairly light watch. It's not heavy in any way. And the way that this strap kind of just goes down off of your sides here, it just sits really nice. It's a nice thick strap, so when this breaks in, ooh, that'll be really nice. So overall, I can turn my wrist like this. It's not moving. It's not too tight. So if you haven't guessed by now, the wearing comfort on this watch is really nice. And 40 millimeters, that's not a very big watch. And the design of this watch, I think this is a good candidate. This could be unisex either way, and I know nowadays, I mean, ladies are wearing, subs and all that kind of stuff. So it doesn't really matter anymore, a guy's watch, a girl watch. But definitely this could be a good candidate because of the size and the design. Overall, great wearing comfort on this watch. So what is one thing that I would change on this watch if I were the designer, get to play watch designer for a day? And for me, that would have to be the date. I think that removing the date would certainly make it a stronger, obviously symmetrical design with this watch. So what would I keep from the watch? And I think with this, I would just look at the overall design. There are so many watches out there that are inspired by something, whether it's a boat, an airplane, a car. I mean, how many car watches have we seen? And some of them you look at and you just cringe. You're like, oh, it's like too much of whatever they're trying to design of into the watch. Now, the Guggenheim by itself is a very classic, clean design. So I think that Mido did a great job of taking the cues of the Guggenheim, the building, without going overboard, right? The design of the dial with the texture on it, the oculus inspiration of the glass, the shape of this spiral here from the building. It all adds up to a good designed watch. And I think that even if I didn't know that this was inspired by the Guggenheim, I think the watch really stands up as a well-designed watch. So the Mido, inspired by architecture, limited edition of 500 pieces, has a U.S. retail price of $1,590. which I think is a really nice price for a Swiss-made, cost-certified, limited edition watch. Now, yeah, I know it's not a limited edition of 50 or 20, something like that. But still, I think this is a wonderful watch. And I was thinking that, graduation season is coming up. I don't want to take it too literal, but I mean, just think of, if you have... your child is graduating from architecture school or something like that, this would make a great graduation gift. So anyway, this is the Mido Inspired by Architecture limited edition from Mido, and it retails for $1,590 US. Hey, if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe and leave comments below. Thanks for watching.